Today on The Young and the Restless, Kyle's unwilling to forgive, Victor rigs Diane's prize, and Nick hires Michael. May receive a commission on orders placed through its retail links, and the retailer may receive certain auditable data for accounting purposes. At the Abbott mansion, Jack and Diane have missed each other and kiss. Talk turns to Kyle. Jack reminds her they both made the decision to pretend they were on the outs. Diane's haunted by the look on his face. She worries their plan was a massive failure and he'll never forgive them. What if he never forgives me? Jack hopes with time their son will understand. Diane worries it will backfire and Kyle will tell Victor their plan before she signs the final paperwork. Jack doesn't think that will happen. Diane hopes the glissade will officially be hers today. Jack says that they'll then move on to their next steps. Diane frets about Kyle's animosity toward her. The gift may not be able to heal those wounds. Jack reassures her. He reminds her they have to keep up their act in public. Diane kisses him and says she'll sneak out the back. At the club, Claire asks Kyle if he's spoken to his parents yet. He couldn't face them, so he took a room upstairs. He feels they made him look like an idiot. Their plan proves how little faith they have in him. Nothing has changed, if anything, it's worse. Claire understands him not trusting them because of their deception. Kyle feels like a fool for trusting Victor, so that part of it worked. Claire points out Jack and Diane's hearts were in the right place. She asks if being angry all the time helps. Can you meet them halfway? Let go of the anger, Kyle. Let go of the anger before it eats you alive. Nikki finds Victor in the living room of the new ranch house. She says he looks upset. Victor says Nick just told him Sharon was arrested for the murder of Heather Stevens. She confessed. He relays that Sharon had an argument with Heather that got out of control, and she then framed Daniel. Nikki can't believe this and worries about Faith. Victor says Nick is shaken up too. Nikki's sure he is and complains about Sharon doing this to her family. Victor says that's not all. Apparently, Sharon was also involved in Phyllis' car accident. Nikki learns that Phyllis is unconscious and in critical condition. Victor reports that they found Sharon's car nearby. He wanted this to be a day of celebrating them taking control of Chancellor and installing her as CEO. Nikki tells him today needs to be about family. They agree they'll be there for Nick. Nikki says Summer must be beside herself about Phyllis. In the hospital, Daniel sits looking at his mother, who is still unconscious. Elena comes in and says these things can take time. Chance appears and Daniel tells him Summer went home. Elena excuses herself and exits. Chance tells Daniel he's sorry. He's been looking for him and Christine. Is she here yet? Daniel replies, no, why would she be? Realization dawns and he asks if something happened when he went to Sharon's place last night. Christine arrives and is taken aback by the sight of Phyllis. Is she going to be okay? Daniel says they have to wait until she wakes up. If she wakes up, Christine is sorry. Chance wanted Daniel and his attorney to hear this from him and says, the charges against you have been dropped. Daniel guesses, it was Sharon, wasn't it? Chance can't give them any information. Daniel says his mom knew it the whole time. No one believed her, even he didn't believe her. He walks over to Phyllis and tells her, you were right, Mom. On the Crimson Lights patio, Mick tells Michael that Sharon was arrested last night. She's in big trouble and Nick needs him to take her case. Michael learns that she confessed to killing Heather and waived her rights. Nick says she knows things about the crime that have not been released to the public. The arraignment is this morning. Nick tells Michael she's not listening to anyone, but she might listen to him. At the motel, Jordan enters and tells Ian that Sharon confessed last night and is being arraigned this morning. He chortles, haha, finally, she's caught. As it should have been from the beginning. Jordan muses, better late than never. Ian muses that she turned out to be far more cunning than he expected, but in the end her conscience betrayed her. That's the risk of having one. They both crack up. At society, Maria tells Tessa that none of what her mother confessed to sounds like her. The doctors have changed her meds, so she must be having some sort of mental breakdown. Sharon isn't capable of doing something like this in her right mind. She cries, there has to be more. She laments that her mom must be scared and Faith has shut down, the poor kid. Tessa asks what she can do. Maria says she's doing it by just listening. Michael and Nick follow Sharon into her house. Nick thanks the lawyer for getting her out on bail. Michael tells Sharon she'll have to tell him everything. She needs to pay for this. I'm guilty, that's my defense. Nick argues she should talk to Michael and tell him everything in case there's something else she remembers that can explain why these things happened. Sharon states that she killed Heather and framed Daniel. Michael says they can argue that her confession was coerced. Nick says that won't work. Sharon made him call Chance to hear her confession. Sharon will stand by every word of it and will fight anyone who tries to stop her. At the ranch, Nikki opens the door to Diane and asks, "What are you doing here?" Diane has a meeting with Victor. Nikki slams her for crashing the wedding and causing a scene. She asks Victor, "Is this going to take long?" Victor doesn't think so. Nikki tells him the sooner he gets rid of her the better. She leaves the room. Diane hopes Victor hasn't changed his mind. She reminds him she fired Kyle at his party. Victor corrects her. It was his daughter's wedding. He wants to know her reasons for doing it. In Phyllis' hospital room, Daniel peppers Chance with questions until Christine steps in. Chance assures Daniel that he's sorry for what he and Lucy have been through and promises answers very soon. All he can tell them right now is that he's free. On behalf of the Genoa City Police Department, I apologize. His phone rings and he steps out. Daniel asks Chris if this is for real. She'll have to get official confirmation, but he's free. Daniel grunts, "Yeah, free." In the motel room over a meal, Ian and Jordan discuss Sharon trying to frame the dead woman's wife. Ian's certain her confession will keep Sharon behind bars for a very, very long time. Jordan asks, "So, time to pop the champagne." They toast and laugh. In Phyllis' hospital room, Christine congratulates Daniel. She knows it seems hollow under the circumstances, but at least this won't be hanging over his head. Daniel thanks her for everything. She says Sharon's confession changed everything. Chris asks him to keep her posted on Phyllis. They have their wars, but she can't imagine the world without her. She leaves and Daniel tells Phyllis even Christine is cheering for her. "Please just wake up." Summer arrives and sighs, "Any change?" Daniel says no. Summer says she just saw Christine, who said he has good news. Daniel says, "Well, you're not going to believe it." At the club, Jack shows up, so Claire leaves him and Kyle to talk. Jack asks Kyle to try and understand what he and his mother were trying to accomplish and why. They saw him heading deeper and deeper into trouble and worried there would be no coming back from aligning himself with Victor. They decided to take extreme action. Kyle reminds him he did the same thing when he helped Nikki get sober. None of this would have happened had he not done that. He's ignoring the damage and hurt he caused. Does he really think Victor will back off when he finds out they played him for a chump? No, he'll double down. Hell, maybe I have enough time to warn him. In Victor's living room, Diane tells she fired Kyle because she wanted something of her own. Did she enjoy humiliating her son in public? Yes, maybe it will teach him a lesson. Victor says they both got what they wanted. Diane says, not yet. Victor pulls out his phone and says he's just forwarded to her the paperwork signing Glissade over to her. Diane can't believe he hates Jack so much that he'd give away a company. Victor tells her he has no use for it and suggests she go to Paris and run it from there. He tells her to show herself out. Diane walks to the door. At the club, Jack scoffs at Kyle thinking Victor has his best interests at heart. Kyle doesn't have any illusions about either of them. Jack says Victor chose to involve his family in his stupid war, and that's the only reason they went after him. They did what they did because they love Kyle very much. Kyle thinks too much has been said and done. I just don't believe you anymore. With that, he walks out. In Phyllis' hospital room, Summer can't believe Sharon confessed. Daniel gets a message from Christine confirming he's free. Summer throws her arms around him. Thank God at society. Tessa asks if Sharon has a lawyer. Maria says Nick's not returning her calls. Last night, Sharon didn't want support. She kept saying she was guilty, and that's that. Tessa suggests they go for a walk. Maria didn't even sleep last night. Mariah can't go anywhere without this following her. Her mom was arrested for murder. She cries that she feels like she's in a horrible nightmare. Just then, she gets a text from Faith saying Sharon is out on bail. Tessa guesses she must have a lawyer then. She tells Mariah that this is a good sign. At Sharon's place, Nick reminds her that she knew what she was doing was wrong, but she couldn't stop herself. It wasn't you. Sharon asks if he's suggesting she was possessed. Nick's suggesting something else was going on that caused her to do those things. Sharon doesn't Nick says she's not a cold-blooded killer. Everyone knows that. She has a life worth fighting for and her family needs her to fight. Michael asks about the revolving door of medications she's been on. I'm going to need to know more about that. He wants Sharon to tell him herself. In Phyllis' hospital room, Summer asks Daniel how he feels. He doesn't know yet. She asks if he's told Lucy. He'll call her later. Summer knows she'll be so relieved. She tells her brother she knows this won't bring back Heather, but it might be the start of things turning around for him. She sits by her mother and tells her that Daniel is free. It's time for her to wake up and say her 4 favorite words, "I told you so." At the ranch, Nikki asks Victor what happened. "Where is Diane?" Victor says he gave her Glissade and sent her on her way. Nikki gawps. What? She asks why he would do anything for that woman. Victor says he had his reasons. He reminds her that she asked him not to use the company in a battle against Jack Abbott, so he gave it to her to do with it what she pleases. There were also other considerations. He muses, "Let me just say that Glissade will be the gift that keeps on giving. Diane Jenkins will be in for a huge surprise when she realizes what she's been given." At the motel, Jordan wants Ian to get out the champagne. Ian first needs to know Sharon's family's reaction to this devastating news. Jordan hasn't been able to find out yet. Ian reminds her that was the whole point of this, to pull Sharon away from the people she holds close like Faith and Mariah. He exclaims, "We had a deal. If you help me, then I'll help you and your family problem." Crisscross, understood? At Sharon's place, Michael asks her about the drugs. She says she felt off and out of balance. She'd lose time and couldn't think straight. Michael thinks they can use this. A knock comes at the door. It's Daniel. He steps inside and asks, "How could you?" Next on Daniel wants justice for Phyllis. Sally settles a score, and Michael and Christine debate Sharon's innocence.